Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to do a 12 by 12 layout, and I'm starting with a hot off the press stamp that is just a bunch of dots, and I'm using a Versamark watermark ink pad to cover this piece of craft cardstock in this dot pattern, and then I'm going to emboss it with white embossing powder to make a craft and white polka dot pattern paper. And the inspiration for this layout was I read an article or saw a layout in I think the March Creating Keepsakes. It might have been February, I don't remember, where they were talking about the slice, the making memory slice, and they had used the slice to cut out scalloped circles on a page and then backed them with patterned paper. And I really liked the look of it, but I don't have a slice and I don't want a slice. So I am trying to see if I can get a similar look to what I have on hand. So I'm starting with the embossing and then I'm going to go from there. Just cleaning my stamp there. And you can see that the embossing's not perfect. Again, I don't really stress out about that. By the time I'm finished, a lot of this is going to be gone anyway. So this is my trusty, dusty Fiskars shape cutter, which is my only shape template, but I like it just fine. And I'm just cutting totally randomly a bunch of different sized circles. And some of them are hanging off the edge, and some of them aren't. It's just whatever I thought looked good. This one gave me some problems. The day I was filming this was one of those days where nothing goes right. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. So I struggled with a lot of things, and so the video's heavily edited. And also, as you can see here, I'm using the nesting ability of these to cut a slightly smaller circle so I have that white showing. If my brain had been working and I wasn't having one of those days where nothing goes right, I would have glued this piece of craft cardstock onto a piece of white cardstock and then cut out the circles from that, and that would have been much simpler than the way that I'm doing it here. So if you like the way this looks and you want to recreate it yourself, my recommendation would be, once you've cut the circles from the brown cardstock, to just put a white cardstock behind it and cut the circles again, because cutting scraps of white cardstock and trying to make the circles, first of all, didn't save me all that much paper in the long run anyway, and was just a total pain. So, don't be like me. Learn from my mistakes. Okay, now I am going to take this foam tape, and the reason I'm using this foam tape is because my pop dots are pretty thick, and I didn't want there to be a huge difference between the patterned paper and the layout itself. So I'm using this just because it's super thin. But if you want it to be a big difference, you can use whatever your foam dots are. If you don't want a difference at all, then fine. So now I'm just sticking the pattern paper circles on top of the foam so that it's a little bit more dimension on the layout. It's going to give another layer and another texture to the layout to have the pattern paper be inset a little bit. Just putting it down and trimming and making sure that the pattern paper has plenty of support. And I'm putting adhesive on the back of the paper with my adhesive gun because I'm now going to stick a piece of scrap white cardstock to the back. So the whole thing will be stronger and I won't have to worry about those little pieces of paper getting caught on stuff. And now I'm adding black faux stitching with a Sharpie fine point marker to the white circles, just for a little bit of interest in detail. And you notice how I used a striped paper and I let it go every which way, and I just like how that looks. Okay, this is a picture I took of a lotus, and lotuses are one of my favorite flowers, but you hardly ever see them, so I was very excited to see this lotus, and I'm actually going to be journaling about how they're one of my favorite flowers and I don't see them that often, and etc. And that's because a lot of my layouts are not necessarily about events and stuff that I've done, but things that I'm interested in and things that I like, because I think it's a lot of fun to look back on those. Alright, so I've matted my white journaling spot and my photo on a piece of pink cardstock together, and now I've matted that pink cardstock on green, and I gave it a scalloped edge with my Fiskars border punch. And now I'm just trying to figure out where it looks good. I know that I want the photo to be there, but I didn't like how it was just kind of floating there, so I'm going to anchor it with this piece of pink pattern paper, and I'm going to mat it on white just to make it brighter and help it pop off the craft paper more. And I think I'm going to use this orange flower, and I'm also going to add some ribbon. And what I'm going to do with the ribbon is I'm going to cut a piece and then I'm going to tie a knot around it. I'm not very good at tying knots, so I like to use this technique instead of trying to try a bow around the entire thing, because I have a tough time with bows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that there, and I'm going to wrap it around to the back where I've put adhesive. And then I'm going to cover the ends with Scotch tape so they don't catch on anything. And I'm just rubbing up the excess adhesive with my finger. And now I have a pretty little bow. So I'm just going to put my normal pop dots on the back of this layout to give it more dimension. And I should have done my journaling before I stuck it down, but it's okay. I'll just write lightly. So now I'm doing my journaling. And I'm going to stick the orange flower on with pop dots as well. And I'm putting a button in the center and inking the edges in pink, since there's a lot of pink and orange in the photo and in the papers. And I'm going to put glue dots on 3 of the petals where they overlap the photo. And I'm going to put dimensional adhesive on the rest of the flower where it doesn't overlap the photo. And my battery died just there, so that's why I had an abrupt jump. I'm just doing my title. And I have these big chipboard letters from Making Memories that I love. And I'm going to use folded glue dots to support the ones that overlap that circle. I am using the craft glue dots, which are the ones in that red package that you see at the right side of the screen. They're a little bit thicker than the memory book glue dots, which are the ones I normally use. So they're better for folding and stacking underneath things to prop them up. So I'm just continuing to work on the title. And you can see how well the stacked glue dots prop up the L there. The camera angle is really good for seeing that. So here is the completed layout. Oops, didn't mean to zoom in there. You can see how the inking on the flower turned out nice, and I did pretty well even though I didn't have any lines for my journaling. And I love how the letters seem to float over that circle there. And in all, I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned.